This week we have two major transits to talk about, including a new moon that is starting the 6 week eclipse window, the second and last one of 2025, a big transformational time. So, if you are wanting to go deeper into your astrology studies, the Vedic Astrology Mentorship is now open for enrollment. We are starting this class this Saturday on the new moon. So you can check it out at quietmindastrology.com/mentorship. And the orientation will be this Saturday. And this is the place if you want to learn everything I have to give in my 19 years of experience, thousands of case studies, all the charts I've looked at, all the research I've done, all the books I've read, consolidated into one place. So you have a quick reference to learn and experience astrology in depth, to give and make accurate predictions and give great readings. So you know when you're saying something, you know it's coming from experience, you know that it is validated, and you've tested it out yourself. So you'll get experience reading charts, you'll get a lot of experience with your own chart, and you get a lot of practice actually giving readings and getting real feedback. And if you haven't seen my workshop, Become Your Own Astrologer, that's the place to go. You can hear actual examples and stories from past mentorship students and the results that they get with their clients and amazing feedback. Like things that took me years to figure out, they're able to learn in a few months and then give readings. And people say that was so amazing and so resonant, 100% accurate, spot on, incredible. And I'm so grateful to share this. It's something that has been really near and dear to me. I've had amazing teachers in my life, and I love to give this back. So if you want to go deeper on your astrology studies, check out the link in the show notes or quietmindastrology.com/mentorship. So the first thing happening is on Sunday, August 17th. This week, we have the moon exalted in Taurus, and that's always a nice thing to have. And if you're watching on the video, I'll show this as well. So we got the planets pretty well spread out this week to start. So that means there's a lot of energies going on in a lot of different places. We've come out of the Mercury retrograde. So Mercury is now direct, but we are still in the shadow period. So you may be tying up some loose ends, some unresolved communication things from the past, particularly unresolved emotional stuff of the past, as Mercury's been through Cancer. Mercury's going to move on to Leo in a while. So then we're going to move on to a more active energy and great for learning and education, as I've talked about this month. But right now, in this week, it's a good time for going back over any unresolved emotional stuff that needs to be spoken about internally or relationally. And then the moon being exalted on the 17th is a time that's good for sort of nourishing, nurturing kind of activities, meditation, spa, massage, things like this that feel nurturing and nourishing for you, aromatherapy, all good stuff to do around this moon exalted time, which happens every month. So every month we get this nice time where the moon's in its happy place in the sky. And there's actually astronomy related to that, where the moon actually spends a little more time in the area of Rohini Nakshatra. And that's part of the whole mythology of it, which we go into in the mentorship. But to keep it short for now, it's basically the moon spends a little more time in one section of the sky. And that time of the month tends to be a good time for nourishing activities. So that's around Sunday, Monday, the 17th, 18th. And then the big shift comes on Wednesday, the 20th, when Venus moves into Cancer and it's joining up with the moon and Mercury here. So this is good for all things to do with relationship, romance, intimacy, bringing in more sensuality and nurturing kind of connection into your relationships. Again, with Mercury there, if there's unresolved stuff of the past to be resolved, to talk about, you can really move forward through it around this time, the second half of August. But we've got a few weeks here with Venus in Cancer to enjoy nourishing activities, especially in romantic relationship, especially in creative artistic expression as well. Like if you want to express yourself through music or art or dance or listening to music or watching movies, things that are more emotionally evocative or connecting for you are very nourishing and nurturing at this time. And starting off in Punarvasu here, there can be this sense of renewal and this sense of like finding a new level of expression of yourself around mid-August. And then to late August, we start to move into the Pushya energy, which is like the nourishing part of this. And this is a really nice time overall. And we'll get to Auslasia later in a few weeks, where Venus and Auslasia can bring up some unresolved, deeper stuff in relationships we'll talk about in future episodes. But it's a good time basically into early September to be doing like Kundalini practices or transformative practices, tantric practices, things that move energy and transmute energy, especially relationally. But overall, this is a very nice trans, a very harmonious energy. One thing I'm always looking for with transits and energies of planets is it harmonious or dissonant? Like Venus, nurturing, love, beauty, Cancer, nourishment as well. So there's a very harmonious energy here with Venus in Cancer. But when it gets into the later portion of it in September, Auslasia can be a little deeper, a little more intense, and a little more transformative. So it's a good time for doing transformative work through relationships. Now, looking at your finances, Venus in Cancer could show a desire to spend on things that are comforting and nourishing for you. And this is again for everybody, but wherever house it's in for you is going to tell you more the area of life affected. So you want to know your own birth chart. And we go through that in the free workshop, like how to get into your big three, ascendant, moon, and sun, and how to start to look at the rest of the chart as well. And we go really deep in the mentorship. But Venus in Cancer for everybody, it's like financially, what brings you nourishment? What do you really love to invest in? And this can be self care things, healthy habits, yoga, exercise, things that are actually more nourishing, like yin yoga, or exercise that's more like time in nature, maybe like you're running out in a beautiful part of nature or going for long walks in nature would be more fitting here. So overall, financially, this is a good time, but it could be some comfort spending, like maybe retail therapy could happen here, where you're shopping or spending money as a way to cope with something rather than to address something deeper. That's potential, but overall, this is a more positive thing where it's like you might want to go to the things that really nourish you. Like if there is a certain like spa you like to go to, or if there's like an art exhibit you want to go to, and things that sort of into that are stimulating, maybe entertaining or stimulating mentally or emotionally or just interesting for you. This is very good energy for that. And then the big shift coming this week is on Saturday, the 23rd, when we have the eclipse season beginning, essentially. So that means that the moon is on the 23rd going into Leo, and it's a new moon because the sun and moon are together. So anytime you see that in a chart, that's a new moon. If you have that in your birth chart, you're born on a new moon. And it's with Ketu as well. So Ketu brings a sort of detaching energy where there's things we need to let go of in this cycle. And starting this 6-week cycle from new moon to full moon to new moon to full moon, we are going to be beginning something here. The new moon is a time of beginning, but also a time of letting go with Ketu there. So we're beginning to let go of an old ego identity or old ways of controlling or being with this Ketu Leo energy. Now, I've talked a lot about this year, and that's a big movement happening for everybody over 18 months. And we've still got like 15, 16 more months of this. So Ketu and Leo is having us lose ourself in a good way, like letting go of the ways of being or attachment to identity that don't serve us anymore. And it's like playing small or saying, I am this person, I'm not that person. These kind of things that we get attached to that often end up trying to keep us safe and protect us, ultimately end up blocking us from growth. And the ego wants to look good, wants to know everything, have all the answers, be in control, and not change. The ego is anything that we're attached to forms. And then we end up in the cycle of suffering in the Vedic tradition and the yoga philosophy. Like when we attach to forms and ego and identity, then we're more likely to want to seek out pleasure and avoid pain to a fault, where we're avoiding difficult choices, difficult conversations, and then we're just seeking out the easy, comfortable things in life. And that's what solidifies the ego. And it gets attached to these comforts and avoidant of these pains. But sometimes we need to go into difficult things to learn and grow. And part of this lesson of this 6-week cycle is where do we need to let go to create space to move into our next level of growth of our spirit, of our soul, where Rahu is in Aquarius, opposite of this. So we're being called into a new, unique expression of ourselves. We're all being called into a more global society, a more social society, more interactive, And you could even say like utopian society where there's been a lot of technological advancements and a lot of things becoming more and more accessible to more people. With Saturn was in Aquarius over the last 2.5 years. We talked about this a lot in the past episodes. Lots of innovation and technology. And it's the same thing that happened 30 years ago with the dot-com bubble. Now we're in the AI bubble. But in the same way, it's like bringing in this new technology that is changing and revolutionizing society. And we are figuring out what to do with it. In the same way, in the mid 90s, nobody quite knew what the internet really was going to turn into. It was way before social media and all this stuff, but it evolved into what it is now. And AI is also on a similar path now as the internet was 30 years ago. So for all of us, we're moving into more of a society where we're more interconnected. We have more resources than ever before. And the sense of ego self, of control, and this is what I'm attached to. If there's a certain job or a role or responsibility or identity you become attached to, it needs to adapt and adjust to this new world that we're living in and moving into. What some people call the fourth industrial revolution, like this new world where so many things are so accessible and so international and so global. And now with like satellite internet, you can be anywhere in the world on the internet. And there's so many things like this just growing and growing and changing the way the world is shaped. So where we all fit into this and our own human experience is challenged. It's becoming questions, becoming something to explore on a deeper level. And that's where things like astrology or any sort of typology system or self-awareness practice is so valuable. And this is where astrology has been so helpful to me in my life as I grew up without a father and trying to find my way, asking questions about everything in life and not really finding answers until I found the Vedic path of yoga, Ayurveda, and Vedic astrology. And for me, that was like really what opened my eyes to a philosophy that really resonated for me and really made sense. And seeing my birth chart and having my first reading with my mentor and feeling so seen and validated and understood in my reading is why I'm here today. And it felt like it made sense of things that I couldn't see before. So with astrology, we're tracking these patterns through time and we're trying to make sense of them and trying to make sense of the shifts of energy. And we see very clear patterns, like when Saturn was in Aquarius, massive tech growth. And then Saturn and Pisces were in the bubble, like in the bubble of the dot-com era and now the AI era. And when Saturn gets to Aries, especially by Taurus, that bubble will have burst. That's still like 2, 4, up to 6 years, around 4 to 6 years, I think, that this will happen. And then we'll have a different financial system in Saturn and Taurus, because that's something we've seen throughout history as well. Every 30 years, when Saturn's in Taurus, we have major financial shift in the currency of the world, like the loss of the gold standard, the shift to the euro. So many of these things throughout history I've talked about in past episodes. We're moving towards that over the next like 6 years or so. And that's all going to bring in a lot of change in the world. And I think more and more movement towards less of having to work and having to do things because it's just what we have to do to make money, or just because it's this system and it's set up that way, to becoming more and more efficient throughout the world and more freedom to do what you really love. And there's a lot of people talking about the potential of a universal basic income, which by Saturn and Taurus, that could be a possibility. I think for sure there will be some sort of monetary system change by then. I know that. But I don't know for sure if there will be a universal basic income. It's already being tested some places, but there's a lot of talk about if that happens, then it's like, why do we work and what do we do? And I think it comes back to, again, what do you really love? And what would you do if you had all the money in the world? What would you do with your time? And that's what Saturn and Taurus is really going to show us. And it's coming up quite a ways away. So I like to think about the big picture of things myself. But this, all the way back to this week, this eclipse season starting is challenging us to reevaluate our identity, our ego, our constructs, what roles we play, and where that's going to fit over the next several years. So if you're not doing something you love and you're passionate about or connected to, astrology can maybe give you some perspective. Your birth chart might show you some of your strengths and challenges. And sometimes I see people with charts and like they are totally living in alignment with the gifts of the chart and they're thriving. And sometimes I've seen, this is more rare in the readings I've done, but there are people who I see something in the chart and it's almost the opposite of what they're doing, and they're struggling and frustrated and really just want to get out of it. I actually was in that place many years ago in like my late teens, early 20s, just working for money, just struggling and getting stuck into these mindset beliefs like that I had to suffer to make money and then I could eventually relax later in life or something like that. And when I learned my astrology, I saw all the gifts I have in things like astrology or yoga, or transformational work. And I was already leaning into that and teaching yoga and moving that direction. But when I saw that in the chart, it just gave me a lot of validation and support of like, that's my path. Those are my gifts. When I do those things, I feel aligned. I feel inspired. I could do it forever. I could do it for free. Those are the kind of things you want to look for in your own chart and just in your own journaling or meditation or reflection practices. Like, what would you be doing for free anyway? This eclipse season moves us more and more in that direction. It's a pretty big one, right? So I'm kind of tying it into a lot of big things going on right now. And with Jupiter and Gemini going on through all this as well, it's an opportunity to expand in a lot of new ideas and explore new things. Gemini is very creative, dual in nature, so there's a lot of things going on. And Gemini and Jupiter is very expansive. So when you put those together, there can be a huge expansion of ideas globally, but it can be overwhelming and like too many things, too many ideas, too much to know where to focus on. So Jupiter is going to move into Cancer shortly, in just about 2 months. That's going to bring a nice soothing energy to this, where there'll be a little more clarity after the eclipse season. But still, it's going to be in Gemini again in retrograde, and then it'll be there until June 2026. So we've got this time of exploring new ideas, maybe trying new things, maybe trying on different identities, and following your heart, finding what really brings you expansion and growth. But knowing that there is a tendency here to get overwhelmed and maybe take on too much. So it needs to be directed in a way. And Jupiter is the guru or teacher. So one thing I recommend a lot, and that's been so helpful to me in my life, is basically find somebody who has results or a path that you are inspired by and work with them and follow their path. There was a time where I thought I wanted to be a physical therapist. So I worked with my physical therapist, yoga anatomy teacher for a while and just followed him and saw what he did and talked to him about it and realized that wasn't what I really wanted to do. So if I didn't go that path, I might have ended up going through a lot of expenses of time and money in college to then realize I didn't really want to do that at the end. So he saved me a lot of time and money just by talking to him and realizing that wasn't what I wanted to do. On the other side, when I got my first astrology reading, my mentor, I was like, how do you do this? I want to know everything you do. Please teach me. And I'm very glad I did. And I worked with him for a few years and learned a lot from him. And that's why I'm here today teaching astrology, because I saw somebody who had some sort of result I wanted and some skill that I wanted. And I just wanted to know how he did it and learn everything I could from him. So I went that path. So if you want to go that path on your own astrology journey, that's what I offer in my mentorship. But if there's something else you're wanting to explore, then find somebody who has some sort of results or success on that path and talk to them. And that's the Jupiter energy, the guru, the guide, illuminating the path through all the noise of all the Gemini, this and that, and social media at its peak right now. There's just so much information all the time; it can be overwhelming. Astrology, again, gives us the perspective to see, okay, that's just a pattern playing out and everything will change. Everything's going to keep expanding. So there's going to continue to be more and more and more. But the more we find a path we want to be on, the easier it is to clarify where to focus in that path and all that noise and get directly onto the path that really matters to you. And some things you can look at in your own chart for this are your Atmakarika, and that's your highest degree planets, your soul essence, the soul indicator, Atma Karaka. And Rahu has a lot of information about what you're passionate about and part of your path in this life, but it could become addictive. So you got to be careful with Rahu, but it does give you a lot of energy to go in that direction. And then, of course, your rising sign, your sun, and your moon, your big three tell you a lot about your general personality, your general strengths, your mind, your emotions, how you lead. These things are very helpful as a general overview, especially the ascendant, because it tells you where all the houses land. And when we do the horoscopes for the week for the general public, we don't use the ascendant because that's not as relevant for these things. We're really looking at the movement of the hands on the clock And those are the big planet movers, Saturn, Jupiter, Rahu, and Ketu, especially. But then, especially things like eclipse seasons, these are big turning points that we're going through right now. This week, we're starting into it. So here we go. Get ready. And if you're already like, oh my God, we just came out of Mercury retrograde and feels like the last eclipse season is still just reeling from, I'm still feeling that. Yeah, I get it. I feel you. It's been a quite a transformational year in a lot of ways, and quite a pivotal year in a lot of ways for a lot of people. But this is an opportunity now. The Eclipse Portal opens, and it's like you can go through a new door. Like I sometimes think of it like in quantum physics, they talk about there's different timelines of reality. And it's basically like you make a choice to go left or right, and then you now created a new timeline. And there's a potential timeline where you went left and one where you went right. And they both exist simultaneously, and it's just layers upon layers of these. I think when the eclipse portal comes through and this time happens, it's like you get a big opportunity to make a big change on your timeline. And this could be big life changes. I just don't recommend what I've seen and observed and studied is you don't want to make those big changes on the exact eclipse date, which is 2 weeks from this Saturday. And then 2 weeks after that, those are the eclipse dates. And around it, though, you are going through this portal, you are considering options, you are assessing things and getting opportunities to make big choices. These are often the big things of like career path, home, relationships, new levels of commitment in relationships, changes of home or relationships or jobs. These kind of big life changes often happen in this eclipse portal. Now, of course, I'm speaking for billions of people on the planet Earth, so not everybody's going to go through it at the same degree. And that a lot of it can be seen through your own birth chart of like, what do you have in Leo and Aquarius? So the people who have like strong Leo or Aquarius placements are going to probably feel this the most, like your sun, moon, ascendant, or three or more planets in Leo or Aquarius, or Rahu Ketu there because it's a return for you. So you are having this strong energy come up of these big changes in your life. And then the house it lands can tell you what area of life it's being affected by. So if it's in your fourth house, it's more likely, K2 in the fourth house is more likely to mean like a changing of the home or a need for a retreat in your life around this eclipse time, like going somewhere remote, yoga retreat, meditation retreat in nature, ashram, just traveling somewhere nice, these kind of things. That's specifically if you have K2 in the fourth house in Leo and going through this eclipse season over these next 6 weeks. So, I'm speaking broadly, but to make it specific, you look at your own chart, your own placements, especially in Leo and Aquarius, and then your houses of Leo and Aquarius tell you a lot about the energy going on here. And again, we go into all this in the mentorship aspects, dashas, transits, how to see all these kind of things, all the deeper layers of interpreting. It's all in the mentorship. That's where I share the best of everything I've learned in my 19 years of experience all in one place. So you don't have to go through 19 years. You can do it in like 3 to 6 months, like so many students who graduate, which blows my mind still that they could start this program and come in with little to no experience and then be reading charts confidently in just a few months, which is like, it took me years. And I didn't have the same resources. I had a great teacher, but I didn't have all these resources and ways to accelerate the learning and save me a lot of time and confusion. But you have it here. And I give you a lot of access to me more than anything else I offer. You can DM me anytime. We have a private WhatsApp group and we have live calls regularly where we can talk, we practice. You have an accountability partner. So you get a lot of support in the mentorship to look at your chart, to understand it, interpret it, and use it to answer the big questions of life. Which is really cool about astrology is like it can address every single thing that happens in life is in the chart, from children to school to education, money, finances, health, wealth, relationships, purpose. Everything is in the chart. So when I do readings, we end up talking about a wide range of things. We usually end up touching on most of the things in life. Those of you who have had a reading with me, and you actually can apply that reading to the mentorship. So you get a little discount on that if you've already had a reading with me. So just so you know, if you haven't seen that, then you can message me on Instagram or send me an email to learn more about that. But when you do an actual reading, you might end up looking at everything in the chart. like you're thinking about a big move, thinking about purchasing something. You can see it all in the chart, and you're thinking about relationship stuff. How do you relate with your partner? What are the strengths? What are the challenges? And when we look at synastry like this, relationship charts, it always amazes me, but it's like it's so common now. It shouldn't. But like for example, very common. I'll see like somebody's ascendant is their partner's seventh house, or somebody's Darakaraka is their partner's Amakaraka. And when we see these things, we find the points of harmony, and we also can find the points of dissonance. And I hear it all the time when I do synastry readings of like, yep, that's exactly it. That's what we fight about, and that's where we're harmonious. And it's so clear in the chart. And it blows my mind still, but it shouldn't at this point. But astrology is like there is a energy field playing out here that's you can see in the chart, and there's a clear pattern to it, and there's predictable patterns and archetypes playing out, and then we have choice in what to do with it. And it always excites me when I see people. It's like, oh, this could be an indicator for long distance relationship or a conflict with a spouse in this way. And then they say, well, actually, it's more like this, and it's the positive expression of the placement. Like maybe they work with somebody and from a foreign country, and they have overseas work, and these are like 12th house placements affecting the seventh house, and it ends up being the positive expression. So I always talk about this. Every placement has a positive, negative, and neutral potential expression. And then we have a choice in what to do with that. And if we're finding the negative expressing too much, we move it towards our actions being aligned with the positive side as best we can. And we have choice. And when I go into the mentorship and you work with me, I give you a list of those for every possible placement. So whether it's the planet in the sign, planet in the house, planet in the nakshatra, rulers of the houses, conjunctions. I give you the full table of all of the positive and negative expressions of those. So no matter which ones you have in your chart or which ones you end up seeing in a chart, you have a reference point for that. And this took me many, many months to make a few years ago. And it's basically consolidated all the books and all the research I've done into one place. So you have that based on experience, based on the best books to reference and say, okay, if we have this placement, whether it's debilitated or exalted, there's still positive and negative expressions of it. And you have the choice in how to work with that. So if you want that kind of guidance and that clarity on everything in your chart and then able to put it all together and to read your own chart like an expert and experienced astrologer, and within a few months instead of many years and many just hours spent scrolling through random books and YouTube videos and disjointed things, you have a clear path step by step to go A to B to C, to learn astrology in depth, to make accurate predictions and know that they're right, and then to give great readings. That's what we do inside of the mentorship. And enrollment is open just for another week. So until Friday. And then we start on Saturday with the new moon, starting into this eclipse portal with a positive intention of moving into your gifts as an astrologer, learning how to read charts for yourself and then for others. And if you're like me, you probably don't think you want to be an astrologer. I just wanted to do it for myself. I just wanted to know how to do that. And that's why I started learning. So if you don't want to be an astrologer, that's totally fine. But if you are studying it, then I would say you probably could call yourself an astrologer because that's just somebody who studies astrology. So if you're listening to this podcast, I think you're an astrologer and you're on the path. And it's just a matter then of like, what level of astrologer are you? And I actually just made a new guide for this or a little quiz you can do on the last episode. You can check that out to see what level you're at on your own astrology path and how you want to move forward. And there's a clear step there, next step with everyone and guidance on that. So I hope you found this episode helpful. If you want to go deeper with me, again, the mentorship is open now. And it's a great way to work with this eclipse energy, moving into a new phase of your life. And if you have any questions, just send me a DM on Instagram at Quietmind Astrology or quietmindastrology@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Have a great week. Happy Eclipse Portal transition. And I wish you all the best and look forward to sharing more with you soon.